Mila Salvador.
Looking for a chemical mate.
Yup matie kabieno. La kelia ye.
Sam's Crisip oberongira mwera madano weng mare Uganda. Jami pa Sam's timapo likine obero Crisps melayata, Crisps megonja, cookies, odi, berenge kemukene mapola ta. Nong jami pa Sam's Snacks e supermarket duju matilo baman. Sam's Snacks, noa pora memite.
Ajolo in miteka neno program au diko matien ketawa waji kwere obere kanywan ki ema akwero udiko session mi achelo obere session ma wanero chingwi ngoma tika timeken pin ma pat we lowo ento ketma waji kwere ni i segment mi rio man mi abogalam kawa dugu no tiki welo in the morning we ye weka jolgi welo le manok kabene omera mo achel dimo tika loge ni eno beru ki kar mi torne yo mano lep mano dano mer nyang ketma donc tikwere White dot kumbiri ko bokolok mo pere tek dul mi deposit protection fund ngoke ko ma gen gitimo chiene ma initere banki ke tero nga ma goke bank ene ka dire ki lor manikin gamenta waji ki logio chiene ni inokini dul eni ene gitiu ilok menen ni chiene ma inikere bank karo berutie kirika bank ene pe wai chao ki kenyu enter way law program o cherwa law kile moro. A very good morning, ladies and gentlemen, all on One World TV. My name is Pat Robert Larubi. In the studios, I have my guest, Mr. Patrick Ezaga, Director of Communication from Deposit Protection Fund, and my sister, Ms. Joan Agawa, Assistant Manager, Business Operation. Now, there's a big debate. Every time you go deposit your money in the bank, what is the safety of your money? If these banks wake up one day and they're being closed, what do? Do you get your money? There's always an option, and that is why the Deposit Protection Fund, the team is here to give us a niche to go on this journey. Mr. Patrick, welcome on the show.
Thank you very much, my namesake. Good morning, viewers. My name is Patrick Ezaga, Director Communications, the DPF.
Joan, you're welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm called Joan Agawa, Assistant Manager, Business Operations.
Yes, people watching One World TV across the region and across the country want to understand briefly from Mr. Patrick as a Director of Communication. Take us into a small spotlight on the Deposit Protection Fund.
Thank you. Good morning again. The Deposit Protection Fund of Uganda, what we christen as DPF, is a government agency that was established based on the desire and the needs to protect depositors in the event of a financial institution closing. This institution initially was part of a division under the Bank of Uganda, but with the global trends and the need for the concept of deposit insurance to stand alone, DPF was moved into an autonomous entity, although still regulated by the Financial Institutions Act. We are an agency under the Ministry of Finance, and what we do basically is to ensure that should anything unfortunately happen to a financial institution, we come in to, support the depositors who may be affected by such a closure.
Joan, we see the project is on. We want to know if we have all these entities put together, how do I know my bank is part of your entity?
Thank you, and good morning, viewers. The best way one can know that their bank is protected is to look out for the license at the bank. So when they enter, the first thing they need to look out for is the license that shows that they're regulated by the Bank of Uganda. I will request my director to throw more light.
Yeah, just to make it more clearer, all financial institutions in this country are regulated in one way or the other. Now, the Deposit Protection Fund of Uganda focuses on the financial institutions that fall under the ambit of the central bank. And these include the commercial banks, the credit institutions, and the microfinance deposit-taking institutions. So, Patrick, to make it easier for the viewers, you know, when you walk into a shop, a bona fide shop is normally required to hang something called a trading license.
Trading license.
Somewhere on the wall to show that they are bona fide, they are legit. And in the same way, the central bank also licenses all financial institutions that are mandated to operate in the country. And these banks are required to visibly display those licenses where every depositor, anyone who walks in, can see. So the easiest way to do it is walk into your financial institution, look around, somewhere you should see a license authorizing them. If it is not there, ask, and somebody should be able to show you. That's the easiest way to confirm whether your bank or your financial institution is properly regulated.
No. There's a question here.
Yes.
Many people, many Ugandans just say a bank is a bank. We all think it's a bank. Now, here in the paper, we see we have commercial banks, we have the credit institutions. Maybe a small spotlight. Which one is a commercial one, and which one is a credit institution? For my mother who is down in the village there, who has to really understand the difference between the banking systems?
The difference is usually in the nature of the transactions. The regular commercial bank is the one to which you can deposit your money, you go and withdraw, you save, you get loans and all that. Now, there are different tiers. Top of that is what we call the commercial banks, the regular banks you know. Then the microfinance deposit taking institutions, by its name, they take deposits, okay? And in terms of transactions, their volume of trade is not exactly the same as the one of commercial banks. So there are things they don't do. So in terms of tiers, you have the commercial banks, you have the MDIs, the deposit taking institutions, and then the credit institutions, which are much smaller. So they are given different levels of operations by the central bank. Yeah.
Okay. Over to you, Joanne. Who is covered or protected under this system of the deposit protection unit?
For any depositor that has an account in a contributing institution is covered by the DPF to a limit of 10 million, and this limit goes to per depositor per contributing institution. Now, what this means that for as long as your bank is regulated, as Director has already highlighted, as long as your bank is regulated by the central bank, that is Bank of Uganda, then you are protected up to the limit of 10 million.
No, is that a reason enough for someone to be interested to know the work of the deposit protection unit?
If I may, yes, very much so, because number one, as I mentioned, this is a government institution. Number two, one of our primary roles is to ensure that the community, the public, has confidence in the financial system of the country. And to do that, it is important that you, Patrick, and any depositor out there needs to know that if I keep my money in a financial institution, it is safe. Should anything happen to that bank, my money is safe. I mean, a few years back, we had the stories of some financial institutions that collapsed, the Greenland banks of this world. And a number of depositors were really distressed. To this day, some people are still chasing their money. And that's why this body called the DPF was established, so that should anything happen to you, your money is protected. As Joanna said, there is a limit to it. And the limit is because the concept of deposit insurance focuses mostly on what we call the bottom of the pyramid, the low-income earners. Now, the question comes usually is, what if I have more than 10 million? What happens to the rest of my money? At the end of the day, with the 10 million shillings, I would like to tell you and our viewers that up to 98% of depositors in this country are covered. What does that mean? It means the majority of Ugandans have 10 million shillings or less in their account. In fact, of the 98%, up to 95% are basically between 1 and 3 million shillings. We withdraw salary twice, as you know. It comes the first time you withdraw to pay debts, second time and it is gone. Yes. So at 10 million shillings, almost everybody is covered. Now, for those who have more than 10 million, when a bank closes, there's what we call a liquidation process. The central bank appoints a liquidator, and that liquidator is expected to neatly wrap up the closure of the institution, which brings in some money. So any amount more than the 10 million shillings, the law requires that those category of people are paid for first from the liquidation process.
And as someone is interjecting here, they say, ask Patrick to explain, if I have less than what he has said, the 10 million, what do I do?
If you have less than, you're okay. Because it means if your bank closes and you have 2 million shillings, you get your 2 million without a problem.
Okay. Patrick, maybe to just break it closer.
Yes.
Now, what happens? The banks are there, the money is there, it has closed abruptly. How would a depositor get guarantee that he or she is protected. There is one step to say the money will be there, it will be paid.
Yes.
But what is the guarantee that I, as a depositor, I am protected by the laws that you establish?
First and foremost, the guarantee is in the law. The Financial Institutions Act provides clearly for the Deposit Protection Fund of Uganda to come on board to pay depositors in case their financial institution goes down. The second guarantee is that, as you know, Patrick, every financial institution keeps customer records, your national ID and all that information that is about you. Now, this is information that is shared with us by all these institutions which are regulated, and they're aggregated. So in the event that a financial institution closes, your bank closes, we already have the statistics of all the depositors of the affected bank, okay? And also we have information with regard to the amount of monies that each of you have through our system that we call the single customer view. The single customer view is basically our mechanism of ensuring that we are up to date with the records of all depositors. So if anything were to happen, from the beginning, as long as your records, and this is very important to emphasize, as long as your records with your financial institution are up to date, there is no need to worry. Today, the unique identifier is the national ID, the NIN. Every single citizen has a different NIN. So that becomes a unique identifier. We shall then know that Mr. Patrick Larubi was having this amount of money in bank X. Now, the law also specifies that should that happen, all depositors must get their money within 90 days of the closure of a financial institution.
That is 3 months.
That is 3 months. That's what the law provides, but it is an upper limit. At the DPF, what we're doing right now is, thanks to technology, we have developed mechanisms. We are working out to ensure that we have a mechanism of paying people at least within 30 days. It is only those who may not have up-to-date records who may be affected, because then we have to go through a very elaborate verification process to confirm that you are actually the person who has that money in your bank. So those whose records are not complete may be affected in terms of the delayed payment. But if your records are clear, within 7 days to 30 days, your money should be given.
I have a problem.
Yes.
Which is a problem for every Ugandan. You lose a SIM card, you go with your ID, record is filtered. The next time you have the same emergency, you have to look for your national ID, you have to go again and get the record filtered. With this inconsistency of record keeping and the storage of the NIN, what happens if my information is not up to date?
Of course, as I mentioned, it will affect you in terms of the speed at which you get paid. But I would like to calm the viewers and say that I think things are improving. The banks themselves have a mechanism. For instance, if you lost your national ID, the NIN is not lost if the bank already has it. The physical ID may be lost, but the national identification number of a certain Mr. Patrick Larubi is on record, okay? And normally what do you do when you lose your documents? Get a police statement, and of late, this is for NIRA, but I'm told you can be given provisionary documentation to prove. So those are the categories of people whom we would probably deal with. But as you can see, I don't think they'll be outliers. They'll not be the majority of people. And those are the cases that we handle on a case-by-case basis.
Maybe.
Joan, you want to add something?
Oh, yes, I want to. Yeah. Currently, with the IT systems that he has already mentioned, that we are putting in place, for as long as the bank has your NIN and you have already registered and updated your records with the NIN, actually, the next day, if the bank fails today, the next day you'll get your money instantly because your records are updated, whether you have given us an alternative mode of account or you've given us your mobile money. Tomorrow you'll be getting your money with this system that will be rolling out by January. Now, for people that may fail or they have lost their NINs or they have lost their national IDs, like the director has stated, your NIN is intact. In our system, which is the payout system, your NIN is already validated. So at that point, we have already validated your details. So there will be little to bring on. Thank you.
I think it's good practice. Those who are hustling with the record keeping and the NIN problems, especially the many companies out there, it's a big frustration. Every time you walk in, people don't even know where records are. And I think they should come to you and pick a leaf. NIN should be fixed once, and records should be synced. And this helps to solve the problem.
Absolutely.
Anyway, Joan, I get back to you. I have more than 10 million in my account. And here, the situation is 10 million, you have 3 months. What happens to the other days and the money?
Now, for the customers that have more than 10 million, one, we expect that these are the elect. So that means that they have financial knowledge of what is transpiring in the industry on banking. So that means by the time they're keeping their deposits, they are tracking which banks are doing well or something like that. So what does that mean? That means the viewers will have to wait for the liquidation process. At the point we will pay you the 10 million when the bank closes, then the balance, you'll be a little bit patient and wait for the liquidation process. Then at that moment, we'll pay you your balance. But it also depends. If at the liquidation we recover and sell all the assets of the bank, then we can pay you up to 100%. However, if we recover less, then you will also recover less, depending on what is recovered. Thank you.
And Patrick, just quickly to add that what John has brought a very important aspect that viewers need to know. You see, the concept of deposit insurance presupposes that people like you and me who have more than 10 million shillings and above are generally financially informed. Yeah. You monitor your money, you're interested in the financial statements. But Patrick, your mother and my mother in the village don't understand the balance sheet of a bank. You
Totally.
get, they will not appreciate unless they really walk to the bank to try and understand. So the deposit insurance concept, that's why I mentioned earlier that it targets mostly the bottom of the pyramid group, who may not have the capability to interpret financial statements of banks. But you who has 100 million, 200 million, you are expected to be interested in how your bank is behaving. Should the bank be having issues, you have the capability to be able to know that these things are not going well in this bank. Many times people with that kind of money even have professional accountants hired to prepare their books and so on and so forth. So the net incidence of the collapse of a bank is heavier on the bottom of the pyramid people, because that's their entire saving. Somebody has 3 million and that's life rotates around that 3 million. So if that bank were to close, this person is going to suffer very heavily, as opposed to you who may have more than 10 million. In many cases, you're also multi-banked. You keep your money in more than one bank. And the chances that all those banks you keep your money in are going to close at the same time is very, very, very minimal.
Minimal. Yes. Tentatively, maybe 1 or 2 minutes. I have more than one account. I'll give my own example. My first account is my salary account. I have my second account, which is expense. And then there's the other money, you know, is it current? No tapping until the end of the year. How do I go about with it? And maybe as you conclude, as you add on with that also, what's the future of a joint account in the system, in the situation where there's the deposit protection support?
Joan mentioned earlier that the protection we provide is per depositor.
Yes.
Now, if you have an account called Patrick Layubi and Patrick Ezaga savings account, in the eyes of the bank, that is one depositor.
Okay.
So even if you're 3 or 4 or 5, you're identified as one depositor. Now, should you be paid the 10 million, assuming you and me have a joint account, that 10 million, you and me will sit and decide how to share it. Maybe 5 million each or 7 versus 3, depending on the terms. So the concept of per depositor is actually what is used to define how we pay. Yes.
If I could throw light on what he has stated, like we have said, we know that different customers have savings account, current account, fixed deposit accounts in one bank for different uses. Now, what the DPF will do, if you have 1 million on one account, 2 million on another account, and maybe 1 million on another account, that is 4 millions. So we'll pay all of it. But if we consolidate these monies and realize that your money is above the 10 million, then we'll only pay you up to 10 million. That is, say, if you have 5 million on one account, 5 million on another, and 5 million on another, that is 15 million. So we'll only pay you to the protected limit of 10 million, and then you'll wait for the other. Now, like Patrick has stated, for joint accounts, if I have my individual account and I have another account with my colleague, Patrick, it means that these two will have different coverage. I will get my 10 millions, and our joint account will also get its 10 millions, depending on how much is on it.
Wow, That is the reason they are here on the set.
Yeah.
Well, carefully, Yama TV, my mega committee, take a long moment period. Niching you can in bank, Ngoma Timme, Polkari, Dan watching Anna Paramo Kerochenai Bank, at watching Mirne Kerochenai Bank, PM Chenama in Guagone, Ramo Balle, Inoni Kare Berupe, Eroka in Kerry Bank, Dulmark Loan Deposit Protection Fund. Beru kanene ni kidi kachene ni dire bank loro no gen gitie mi chung ko di kanene chene ene kichulu kit Patrick go waje ko re duwe dek no kanene kichulu chene now Patrick wangol bridge manok wa du kongan mamana tipa men ya lero no ya kuja mero niang matut lokom chene ki gwa ko ni ka bank dire ki loro ka dire gi mono time marach watong kong wiye dul mamego ni konyo dano kini
Afo mera moro un weng da noyo wiye dul ma wanon ti lo kometine gi luoni deposit protection fund of Uganda man dul magamento kerro wekara dikhin maja ka gwak jemi pu wor ma be ci kama initi gwak ye chere ni ki loro kita wiya ti wa winyu ni bank mo gi loro ni in ma charo la gwak limpi bank mieri nong chere ni weng so tichwa menero ni me achiel Chena ma ini gwa bank mir nene I gwa bank mu pore bank eno mi rubit bank ma ti lubute chek ma ti ite Bank of Uganda now ti jo ken ma wa ku jamano gi bolu ni a gen bena gi gwa chena pa dano gi ngog ma pere ter mir nene I kero chena ni kamu pore pete pilo pete kaburu so dire ma jaka gi lor bank yo gamente ki nying dul ma anati ye endi tichwa menero ni chera ni ma ini gwa ni ki chuli ki dwa ko chen ma o wai miliona pa ke nen chera ni kar miliona pa peter ni mu keren do burwenyo wen gamente beno kero chek menero ni bure mu keren mu dongi ibi no eno de no mo mot la chen no kongi chuli miliona pa ni wiye wod ma gina wana timeno
mangarban tika penyone ni dong o ngagi magiramo beruni angeyo kining ni bank ma anati katerie chene na ni ene tiki kero adama tiki kartach manyuru ko tich pa deposit protection fund
Paul bank weng mati Uganda eni wek gu ti jimu pore no gu no gina gidoni license ma agi board Bank of Uganda so wek ini ngi ka kama ini tiki wek chene ni ti bank mu pore nyoko gina ini ti America ini o bank tap pen wek nyuti kama license ti ye kita won nena kere dukane wa trading center ka in titi no mire ke trading license kama lengo wek lu chat wheel ki job yin borri lo wheel ko nen ni dukan mati te chek banks bene chek wajo ni gen mire go no license ma agi board central bank ma dit me Uganda ba bene mire gi ngabo kama leng kama dan wa mire nen ke ngi o kwe petwero no ne pe nyoto mon ero mati bank ni ara mire nyang wun bank mati ka da unyuta kama license wuti ye Chigi nyutri in ben ni ene kara jomati ada.
Meti yo lok wani Mr. Patrick abe chako ke le ulum toure ete tunkan. Ni ati ki chena na mobile money. Ati mekini
mobile money check food pio mini watwero meneno lok me mobile money. Pien kita ngeo kere gamente tiyo ki dul ma pat. Wan dul ma wan ti ye machara deposit protection fund lubbe ki gwa ko lim matie bank. Dul mu kene mageloni Uganda microfinance what is that called UMRA?
Yes.
Microfinance Regulatory Authority. Ki bene check manien magikar mageloni National Payment Systems Act. Ena ye dul manena lok man lubbe gi mobile money.
Okay.
So pikom be de check foot pe ye ni wano nen dul enoni. Jomu kena ye ti lok mobile money.
No, John, we're trying to ask, we took in for the local audience to understand, and we crossed over to the question of protection of the funds on mobile money. And that takes me to the next question on your side. Where does your mandate end? Do you also push it to the SACCOs?
Currently, the SACCOs, we're not covering, they're under a different regulation, like he has stated, under UMRA. And but with time, the laws are being amended. We'll have some large SACCOs that will go under Bank of Uganda. So for any SACCO that will go under Bank of Uganda, will automatically contribute to the DPF, and their deposits will be protected.
That you need to know that over the years, some SACCOs have grown so large that they even have resources threatening what banks have. So as John mentioned, the legal regime is being reviewed to see how best they should be managed. And once they are brought under the ambit of the central bank, as I mentioned earlier, any financial institution regulated by the central bank will then come in.
Patrick, and finally,
Yes.
what happens in case I have a loan as a depositor? Where do I stand?
Okay, thank you. That's a good question, and it is good to end on that note. You know, Patrick, many times, there are many reasons that make a financial institution collapse. One of them is borrowers who don't repay their loans. Those are the things that lead to the collapse of a financial institution. So the first message I want to give viewers is, if you have a loan, service it, because the banks survive on those loans. So at the time of the closure of a financial institution, if you have a loan, as the DPF, the first thing that is done is to net off that loan. So let us say you owe the bank 4 million shillings. Instead of paying you 10 million, the 4 million is first removed. So you get the difference, which would be 6 million. So anything to do with the loans, it is offset first. That means if your loan exceeds the limit of 10 million, you remain with a handshake and a bye-bye. As simple as that.
Okay, Joan, maybe your final take, your remark or your message to the people watching us this morning on One World TV.
Okay, thank you very much. I would encourage the public to update their records, that is with their national IDs, telephone numbers, and alternative mode of payment, say like any alternative bank account, because this way you're helping the DPF be able to pay you faster, like Director stated. We're looking at shortening the period so that we can be able to pay you the next day the bank fails. And I implore the public to have confidence knowing that their deposits are protected. Like we have said, 98% of the depositors are protected. So in any event, should a bank fail, which is the last resort of the central bank, your deposits are always protected. The DPF will reimburse you, and you're free to take these deposits to another bank. Thank you very much.
Over to you, Patrick.
In a nutshell, be interested in what your financial institution is doing, number one. Number two, do not keep your money in institutions that are not properly regulated. All financial institutions that are bona fide must work within the confines of the law. Take interest in confirming that where you're keeping your money is properly regulated and falls under the central bank, so that tomorrow, should anything happen, we come in and we get back all your income. Thank you very much.
From the team at One World TV and the team from the Deposit Protection Unit, their slogan is, for this morning, not a slogan as of what they use. They're saying they wish all depositors and the citizen a good health and a happy saving. I think that's quite important, because it's a step towards the future. My name is Pat Robert Larobe. I have been your host for this morning. Shout out to Emma Aquero, the producers, Hamza, Banya Collins, Okia, and the rest of the team. This brings us to the end of the morning show. Tentatively, we go in for sports with Sarah Adong, Super Lady. Kafuri donya kumbeti watie wabir ka lok mapigite maluko lokum Deposit Protection Fund. Eto kumano bene o ya gikene kon wabir kanki omera Mr. Patrick genki Joan. Magen ko aki dul eni magubir ka nyam lok ma pat. Way no kare medwa ko show eni chamano ini king were bed bene ki ker mini yang matut. Entropi kumbeti Uye wek ba chat bot Super Lady. Ukelwa ngo mala wo time otiano modil beratime. Over to the studio members.
Yup mai beru kaneno ne lekelia ye
Sam's Crisip oberongira mwera madano weng mare Uganda. Jami pa Sam's timapo likine obero Crisps melayata, Crisps megonja, cookies, odi, berenge kemukene mapola ta. Nong jami pa Sam's Snacks e supermarket duju matilo baman. Sam's Snacks, no apora mamite.